as you can probably tell, I'm going to talk about this thing, Ask for Help. It's here are some badges I made. Jeff is right. I go back a little way with Minds at Work. It's an amazing organisation, and I got involved with it through Georgie, who's sitting here, who I'm going to carry on embarrassing through the course of this 15-minute talk. Georgie gave me a job in 2015 at where she works, a company called Made by Many, amazing digital innovation company. Is that right, Georgie? Yeah, okay. And this was, a year after coming back from a very serious breakdown I'd had, and I overheard about this thing that she was setting up with this chap Jeff, mental health in the workplace movement thing, and I was earwigging, and I said, look, can I get involved? Can I help out? I've got some experience of mental illness in the workplace, plenty of that, done about mental health. But so we got involved, wrote some blogs, was involved in some of the when it was a bit smaller, it was more sort of boutique kind of craft beer version of what's happening here today, and it's an amazing thing. And I remember vividly Jeff coming into the office often and being highly entertaining and popular. And I even remember what he was wearing once. There was one time he came in he was wearing a pair of maroon trousers with a matching maroon polo top. How about that? Yeah, do you remember it? It was amazing, right? Anyway, I'll talk a little bit more about. Sorry, Jeff. I'll talk a bit more about Minds at Work shortly, but I'm glad we're talking about suicide. It's a difficult thing to talk about, and it's a thing that we should be talking about, even if it's not easy. Perhaps it's the most difficult thing to talk about. I'm not sure have we had a trigger warning yet this evening. I'm going to give you another one because we've heard some very difficult stuff. I'm going to show you quite a gruesome image now, so be warned. Here we go. It's a picture of me with Justin Timberlake. Justin's the guy on the right, just in case you're wondering. He's the one on the left, isn't he? Yeah, he's the good-looking one. This was taken quite a long time ago because I still had hair back then. And here I'm wearing my Gucci belt that I got from somewhere in Thailand for £2. My background is in journalism. So, as Jeff said, working for national media, GQ, Esquire, The Face, things like that, writing and editing. And most recently I've written this book. It's called Everything Begins with Asking for Help, an honest guide to depression and anxiety from rock bottom to recovery. This came out in Mental Health Awareness Week, the 7 days of the year where we could be aware of mental health. This came out Mental Health Awareness Week. And it's based on an experience I had. Now, having listened to some of the stuff we've heard tonight, a lot of it resonated for me in the sense that 5 years ago I had a very similar incident. So I have a long history of depression, anxiety. I was living in Berlin. I was the editor of a fashion magazine. I'm still not sure how that happened. But August the 10th, 2014, I found myself in the midst of a mental health crisis, burnout, breakdown, whatever you call it. It's interesting the language we have around this, isn't it? Burnout's the one that looks good on LinkedIn. I wasn't on LinkedIn at the time. Anyway, so I was suicidal. In fact, I was trying to do it, and I won't go into it too much. But I was. Does everyone know Berlin quite well? The TV tower in the middle. So I worked in a skyscraper there on the 14th floor, and it was a Sunday, and I'd gone there to resign because I thought, my life was the cheese-shaped thing that we saw. I was very rapidly going from right to left. And I'd gone there to resign because I thought I've got to get out of this job that was kind of driving me crazy. And very suddenly began to have very persistent suicidal ideation and thinking of ways to do it and methods and wanting to do it. And I was outside this place for, I don't know how long it was really, an hour and a half or something. And at some point, a different message came into my head, which was, you could ask for help. And I thought about it for a while, and eventually I took out my phone and I put a message on Facebook saying I need help. And I don't know how long I waited. It must have been an hour, half an hour, thinking, well, if I press this, things are really going to change. I'm facing one thing one way, which is very, very unpleasant and very frightening, thinking about wanting to kill yourself. It's even more frightening saying that you need help. But I pressed it, and some friends came and they took me to a crisis centre in Berlin, and I got treated, and I got shown, it was with a psychiatrist, and I was with an outpatient for a while. And ever since then I've been on a a journey of recovery, really, 5 years on. And that's what this book is about. So, you know, partly it's a memoir about what it's like going through major depressive episode is the clinical word. I don't know, any shrinks in the audience? We don't use that. Yeah. Do we use that here? No. But it's severe depression, is it? Okay, right. So it's a combination of memoir, going through what it's like going through this, you know, very tough time, and then what it's like going into recovery and coming out and finding things that work. And the reason I'm really happy and grateful to be able to present this book tonight is because half the people I've interviewed for it are people with Minds at Work. And as I said, got involved with Minds at Work 3-4 years ago now, met lots of really interesting people. Dr. Ian Drever, he's in the book. Jane McNeil, who's a psychiatrist specialising in trauma. Stacey Thompson. But the best interview, everyone, is with Georgie Mack, because there's a section here. There's a section about work and purpose. And you know, we know that Minds at Work is to some extent focused about mental health in the workplace, and we know that work can cause mental ill health, but it can also be good for your mental health, you know. And I remember vividly, I can't remember what Jeff was wearing this time, but I remember vividly Jeff coming into the office and taking me aside. I'd been having a tough time, and he took me aside and said, "Look, Kev, you have to remember that work can be part of your recovery. You know, it's good to get back into work. It's good to collaborate and participate and give and be serviceful, and all those kinds of things, you know." So I want to say thank you to both Jeff and Georgie for being part of my recovery, as has Minds at Work movement. Thank you. I hope I don't come across like a travelling encyclopedia salesman here, but I don't know about you, but I really like books where all you have to do is read the cover. So this one says, asking for help, ask for help. You know, has anyone read Start With Why, Simon Sinek? Anyone read that one? Brilliant book. So I heard about it, rushed into Covent Garden, went to Waterstones, got a copy of the book, took it home, read the cover and thought, right, good, I know what to do now. And I think I left it on the bin outside for someone else to read. No, this is a very, if I do say so myself, it's a very good book, and there's lots of stuff in here that people can do to get through a burnout, a breakdown, an episode, anxiety, depression, that kind of thing. I'll put it here. By the way, I did bring some and put them on the back there, hoping I could sell some, but it looks like they've all been nicked. But it's fine by me. We are in a bank after all. I have to be slightly careful about what I say next, because I don't mean to sound flippant, but because it's a very serious subject, suicide, there's something I want to make a proposition, which is that, you know, I'm guessing that lots of us in here have had experience of someone close to us killing themselves, or possibly also, as Dan was expressing before, going through an episode of suicidality, I think is the correct word, am I right? Yeah. God forbid that happens to anyone here, and this sort of evil satellite comes into your orbit. It does change things. But what I hear more and more and more, and what I hear from meetups like this and meeting people in the last 5 years who've been through similar things, is that when we're in the proximity of this thing, what it tends to do is make people change their lives, you know. So it's often an incredible stimulus, catalyst to go, I'm going to go this way in life. Am I right, Dan? Yeah. And when that happens, amazing things can happen. And I wanted to talk about something else I've made, which is these. They're called practice cards. I'm not saying they're amazing. I think they're pretty good. But this is something else that I made in the last few years. I've distributed a few. Who's got a practice card here? Got a few around. Okay. I'll just talk about them a little bit and explain how they work, and the story about how they came to be. I'm just checking my notes. I'm sorry about this. Oh yeah, I wrote down, this is the interactive bit. Okay, right. Yeah. Practice cards are it's a normal pack of playing cards, and there's two types of cards. There are yellow ones, which are actions, and there are blue ones, which are ideas. So ideas are things to think about, kind of, you know, philosophical things to meditate on, visualize, that kind of thing. The idea is you shuffle the pack, you pick two cards, and you get those are your cues for your working on your mental health every day, because as we know, working on your mental health is an everyday thing. And I thought I'd show you a few of mine, my favourites rather. This is one that it says, "It is always now and you are always here." Sounds a bit deep, right? The truth is, I saw this one on somebody's arm in a pub in Berlin, and I thought, I'm nicking that, I'm having that one. That's really good. So, it's kind of mindfulness 101, remember that you're always in the present kind of thing. This is another one. Use the voice, call someone at random. So, something amazing happened the other day to me, which was that, I don't know, have you guys got smartphones? I've got one as well, and it started ringing. And I was like, what the fuck's going on? And so I pressed the green button, and I heard this voice. And I was like, somebody wants to speak to me. I mean, maybe that just says I'm very unpopular, but my phone doesn't tend to ring very much. But the point is that certainly when I've been very, very depressed, I've stopped using my voice, I've stopped speaking and stopped expressing things. And the simplest way to do it is to ring someone up. Just call someone at random and have a chat with them. This is an action card, one day at a time. Pretty simple stuff, right? We all know this one. And the last one is dance for 10 minutes to 3 songs. Can I have a volunteer, please? Only joking. I discovered something very interesting sometime into the recovery journey I've gone on, which is that any biochemists here, maybe the shrinks will know this, but serotonin is at its lowest first thing in the morning. So if you start moving around, it kind of gets it flowing and you feel better. So my favourite way to do that is to get out of bed, put the music on, cup of coffee, and start dancing. Would you like me to demo? Yeah. No, I'm sorry. That's too much. But, this kind of thing. Yeah, so these are the practice cards, and the reason they came into being was that, a very brief story about this, which is that after having this suicidal moment in Berlin, I came back to the UK. I was living with my mum and dad. They were in Shropshire up north, and I was at the age of 42, good luck, And I had no money, no job, no friends, nothing to do, no purpose, girlfriend back in Berlin, and I kind of thought, I'd better start doing some recovering. So I started reading a lot and watching YouTube and listening to podcasts and meeting people who'd been through difficult stuff and listening to what they had to say, and then not just listening but actually doing it, that difficult thing you have to learn as you get older. And after a while, I started finding things that really, really helped, that really kind of helped me get through anxiety, depression, that kind of thing. And I started being a writer. I wrote all these things down, and began to be like a sort of archive portfolio of very useful practices, And then about, I guess, a month or two later, my typical morning routine would be get out of bed at 8 o'clock, get on my knees and do some prayer and meditation, then do some yoga stretching, a bit of Tai Chi, then I'd run into the garden and kind of walk around it 10 times to get the serotonin flowing. Bit of dancing involved in that as well, and then I would sort of like dash back into the kitchen for clean eating. Is it low carbohydrate, high protein? Anyway, but a very sort of monastic type of breakfast. Then I'd go upstairs and I'd do some frantic journaling to get my thoughts and ideas out onto the paper, and then I might read some Marcus Aurelius. You can see where this is going, can't you? It's like I was kind of trying to do far too much for any of these things to have any effect whatsoever. So a friend of mine said to me, "Kev, pack it in." I said, and what do you mean? So just try and do 1 or 2 things every day, Everyone know the make your bed trick? Make your bed, yeah? Would anyone like to explain it? That's one way of putting it, yes. So there's a slightly more evolved version, but thank you for the contribution. I heard this thing, make your bed, so if you're very depressed, I guess those of us who are sufferers in the room know this is the hardest thing to do, is to get out of bed. So when you get out of bed, make your bed, make it all lovely and neat and tidy and so on. And then by the time you get back into bed, might be an hour or 2 later, you've made your bed. You've got a win for the day. So it's the same principle, very, very simple practices every day to assist with recovery. And so the other thing I did is I ran uptown, I got some index cards and a pot of paints, and I painted them all down on index cards and turned them into a pack of cards, and I thought I'll just shuffle them randomly every day. Whatever I get, I'll do that. And it began to work, and I began to find things that really helped and other things that were less useful, and built a practice that way. And that's the principle behind these practice cards. So randomize your recovery and make a game out of this process of getting better. Would anyone, here's the interactive bit, everyone. Would anyone like to talk about one of their practice cards, or indeed anything that they do daily for their mental health? Any volunteers? It's a picture of me with Diana Ross. Close, she's a close showbiz friend. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. As I said, Minds at Work's an amazing thing. It's been part of my recovery. Georgie, Jeff, Sarah, April, and everyone else. It's an extraordinary thing. I'm very thankful. Ask for help. Thanks.